Hello and good afternoon. My name is Alja Fabjan and I'm a psychotherapist. On behalf of IPM Digital, I would like to welcome you all to this discussion on mental health in the digital age. Psychological well-being is a topic that is becoming more and more visible over the last few decades, not only in the professional field, but also in the general public. New ways of treating psychological disorders are emerging in the field of medicines and also in the field of various therapeutic approaches. Psychological illnesses are finally becoming less and less stigmatized. But the COVID-19 pandemic has caused major changes in all areas of our lives, an overwhelming uncertainty and a big increase in cases of psychological disorders. So on one hand, we are facing a deterioration in the general psychological state of the whole population, and on the other hand, a significant part of psychological help has moved online. What is happening and what else may happen in the future? We will try to answer these questions in the next hour and a half with the help of our guests, outstanding experts on this field. Hello and welcome, Dr. Nikolaos Dimitriadis, an award-winning communications professional, educator, and consultant. May I kindly ask you to say a few words about yourself and your work?
Yes, hello everyone. Thank you for having me today to discuss this amazing and very important topics. So I'm applying neuroscience for the last 17 years. I'm running neurolabs where we travel all around the world with devices like electroencephalogram and others, and we study human brain reactions to usually business problems. Okay, so my expertise is something that is called neuromarketing, but it's in two emerging fields: neuro HR and neuro leadership as well. In this capacity, also as an academic researcher, I have conducted few studies which are directly related to the topics today. And I just launched a new project in Belgium called wellbeing.ai. So if you go online and you put www.wellbeing.ai, is a new project which is specifically geared into measuring psychological and emotional well-being while we work through the workstation we use. So that's a short introduction. I hope we'll have the chance to say more later on.
Excuse me, can you write down this project name that you mentioned?
Yes, it's wellbeing.ai. We'll put it in the chat. Yes.
Thank you so much. Is Mr. Dimitriadis or Dimitriadis?
Dimitriadis.
Dimitriadis. Okay. I'm sorry in advance
okay,
if I will pronounce it incorrectly.
It's okay. Don't worry.
Thank you. Okay, next, a warm welcome to our next guest, Dr. Drago Yerevitz, specialist in marital and family therapy, professor and head of the Bližina Family Institute. Hello, Mr. Jerebic, and please a few words about you and your work.
Yeah, as you mentioned, I'm a marriage and family therapist. So today I will talk from my point of view how to work with families and couples in this, how I worked in this pandemic time, and how to work with them in through this digital equipment. Okay, that I think this is for beginning.
Great.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to hear something from the the battlefield, the first row, working with clients. Okay, and I also warmly welcome Miss Eva Lozina, a blogger and an influencer. May I ask you to tell us something about you and your work?
Well, hello. I'm so happy to be here with you today. And except that I'm not a doctor, the only one in this panel. I'm a mom, a blogger, an influencer, owner of digital agencies. So I'm in contact with youngs, with mothers, with digital environment every day. So my point of view is a bit different. It's a bit more on the other side of the specialists we are in here today.
Great. Your camera isn't working, or you're joining us without the camera on purpose?
No, I would be happy to have you to see, but I'm not allowed to join with camera.
Aha, so the same problem as I had before.
Yeah, I tried to restart it, but it didn't work, so.
Okay, I hope that they will manage to do something about it, and that we will see you also, but we're glad that we can hear you. Okay, thank you. Okay, let's just start with the questions. First, a rather general but an important questions. I would like to hear the opinion of all our guests about this topic. And the question is, which are currently, in your opinion, the biggest challenges in the field of mental health? Who would like to start?
Ladies first.
Ladies first, okay.
Okay. Well, from my point of view, I believe that mental health conditions are increasing worldwide. That's a fact. But I believe that for us in our country, probably the biggest problem is still stigma around mental health and getting professional help. I believe this among us, among the young people, or maybe in midlife, it's still a bit stigmatized to be even talking about it.
Mm-hmm. So the biggest challenge would be to minimize this stigma. Okay.
Let me continue with this very good sentence. You know, I agree with you about stigma. My experience from working with clients is that people want to search for our help, but many times they don't want to share this information with other people because what other people will think about them if they search mental help. So many times it's in this view, it's very important that you have a web page and that they could find you. And also many people are very interested to have therapy online because they don't there is no fear about that somebody will will see me in front of the door of therapy office. This is maybe one thing about stigma. Another, to answer your question, okay, very big challenges are, depression, anxiety, loneliness. But from my field of working with couples and families, nowadays it's quite easier to divorce than in history. And we still don't know how to manage, especially highly conflicted couples, highly conflicted parenting, how to resolve many open questions when we meet these people or these problems. And now we are still learning how to resolve all these questions or problems. Another big challenge in life of couples is that we cannot compare how to live in marriage with my, I don't know, I say with my grandparents. Because nowadays we have special emotional needs to each other, which our grandparents maybe didn't have so deep. That means, for example, many couples come to us to therapy because they don't have enough strong emotional connections between each other. And many times men, especially men, don't understand what their wives want. I do many things to have a great marriage, but she is still unsatisfied. I don't know what to do. And so that is maybe past few decades, we talked about emotional connections in life of couples who lives together. Maybe for beginning, this is from me.
Thank you. So the biggest challenge would be we have to learn how to listen to each other and understand each other better.
Very good. Yes.
Of course. Thank you.
Okay. So, of course, I agree with what both of my colleagues said before. I will try to give a little bit, a slightly different point of view for something that I think I experience and I search a lot in organizations, in companies. And my understanding of the challenges we face is the following: redefining what mental health issue is. So whenever you talk to somebody about mental health, the first thing they will tell you is, but I'm not crazy. So the idea of taking care of our mental and emotional health should change the perspective, the point of view, how we define a mental and emotional health issue. In the past, unfortunately, maybe because we didn't know much, maybe because the culture was different, you were required to give everything to your work, work morning and night. The person that would come in the office and say, hey, I pulled the 2 all-nighters. So for 2 nights I worked in a row. Actually, this person was considered fantastic and great colleague, and was given promotions. But actually, this person was destroying his or her well-being and mental emotional health and of the colleagues. So we need to change the way that we view well-being and our relationship to work and our relationship to our own mental and emotional health. It's not anymore either you are crazy and everything else is okay. That's a very outdated view, a dangerous one, but unfortunately one that we still need to educate people in companies, organizations, families, friendships, and society. If I have a burnout, which means I feel physically tired, I become cynical, these are usually the diagnostic symptoms of burnout, and I feel that I'm not sufficient to achieve my goals. Before, somebody would say, come on, man up, be stronger. All these are very soft issues with yourself that you need to solve if you want to progress in life. We need to go from that culture to a culture that says, no, wait, these are important symptoms. These are symptoms that doesn't have to do with your resilience and how strong personality you are, but actually important symptoms that can have a very negative effect both on you and to the people around you. So mental health, going from a mental institution kind of view to everyday life. I think this is our biggest challenge, and I think the pandemic has done both good and bad. It has done, of course, bad because it increased the mental health issues we see. The World Health Organization announced that burnout, depression, and anxiety have increased a lot during this period. Okay, and we see it in many studies. So on the one hand, we have increase, unfortunately, of these issues, but on the other hand, we have higher recognition. So I think if we have to see the silver lining between the negative effects on our emotional mental health of the pandemic is that we finally talk about it. We finally recognize it in the soft versions, not I'm crazy, I have to go to institution, in the soft versions as important issues and not as luxury issues, but as survival issues, must discuss issues. So for me, this is the most important challenge we have: people to understand that mental health issues are not extreme issues, that everyday issues for everybody.
Thank you very much. I think that's a great point of view. If anybody else from the participants would like to add something or comment something, feel free to speak up. And in the end, if there will be some time left, you'll all invited to share some questions or thoughts about the discussion today. Okay, so Mr. Dimitriadis, you just mentioned COVID-19. I have this question prepared for Mr. Jerebic, but I would like to ask you to, there was an increase within the last 2 years of psychological disorders, and do you think that COVID-19 was the main factor that this happened, or would it happen regardless if the pandemic would not existed?
So if I may start, I mentioned before the World Health Organization. So in 2019, and for the first time, WHO recognized depression, anxiety, and burnout as important symptoms in working environments. And this really was the very first important step to start recognizing that work is not a contract that you sign. You are paid every month and you have to kill yourself to deliver. That's not the case. That actually creates more problems. We have research that shows that companies lose more than globally $300 billion because of low well-being at work. There are many studies and numbers like that, 260 billion euros per year. So actually, even before the pandemic, we had a very optimistic, for me, a very good development, the start of recognizing such issues within organizations. Okay, and leadership was taking note, and HR departments start thinking about it and developing measures. However, the pandemic accelerated this discussion, and the pandemic accelerated this. So it started before, but the pandemic acted like a catalyst for change. Why? Because when we were forced to stay at home, and look at this, it's not only working from home. We had teleworking teams before, so it's not the point of not working from the office and working from home, but the fact that this was coupled with a lockdown. So you were working from home and you could not go anywhere, okay? So that this combination of factors, and of course, the existential threat of getting COVID and getting to the hospital, you or people around you, it was a mix of impact of that the pandemic brought that actually accelerated this topic. And new terminologies started appearing, like something we all, I hope we all, not maybe experience, I hope you didn't experience it, but you've heard about it, which is Zoom fatigue. And we are today on Zoom, right? So Zoom fatigue, the fact that when you stand in front of a camera and you have meetings all day with your colleagues, this is very challenging for the brain. It requires a lot of energy, because when I talk to you like that and I look myself on the window, my brain says, oops, am I standing correctly? Am I moving too much? Do I do inappropriate moves? So the brain constantly in the background, in the unconscious, is taking this extra energy to auto-correct me all the time. So I don't go here, I don't go there. The same time is trying to see you while you talk to me and try to understand through empathy networks what is going through you, what you're trying to say. Are you with me? Are you against me? What is your emotions? What your opinion might be, my opinion. And of course, doing this with a small screen, a small window on the screen is very difficult. So the brain tries to get this information, but it's very difficult, and it spends more and more and more energy, leading to tiredness, to fatigue. And the first part of the brain that gets tired and loses energy is the prefrontal cortex, the part behind your eyes and forehead, which is the kind of control center, is the ego control center, the one that will stop urges or other intentions coming from different brains. So you become sluggish, you are not sure if you should say something, and you fall back to default positions. If your default is to say yes, you will say always yes. If your default is to say no, you will say always. So, as I said, the pandemic, because of everything that it brought and the new reality of working from home and working remote and having my kids running around, my dog, being in a small space with my family, not having the ability to go out, meet with people, do sports, come to the office, debate with you in a live way, hug you afterwards, go for a beer or for a walk. All these things really did not. Some of them created new problems like the Zoom fatigue, but I think the biggest part is that they accelerated, boosted the already existing problems. So it is a cocktail of some new problems like Zoom fatigue and a boost of the old problems. And the last thing that I will say with this question is the following. How can I know? How can I know that my team is not feeling well? I don't see them. When I'm in the office, I work with you, and I see Alja, she looks very tired. She's quite alone at lunch. So I have this physical proximity and these cues, these informative signals that can tell me that Alja or Drago or Eva are not feeling very well. So I can approach them, I can talk to them, we can be relaxed. Maybe they can say, when I'm at home and I just see you for 45 minutes in a screen like that, how can I receive this kind of implicit information? It's not explicit, you're not shouting, but through your body language, how you talk, I can understand how you behave in the office. I can have some info and then approach you. How can I do this online? It's very difficult with my team. On the contrary, we focus on deliverables, we focus on. And this is, I think, the new pressures that now are asking for corporations and us as professionals to provide answers. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the situation we are now, to provide the answers.
Okay. Thank you very much. Mr. Jerebic, would you like to add something on this topic about the increase of psychological diseases and the COVID pandemic, the influence between them?
Yeah, thank you. I very, very agree with Nikolaos. Because it's
Nico, you can just call me Nico. Is okay.
Nico, okay.
Thank you.
Okay. When we are online, but many times it's more difficult to connect, to strongly connect with each other, because now in our group it's 10 people, but I see only 4 people. So I can connect only with 4 people. And if we would be in one hall, I could see all 10 people, but now I can see only 4 people. And then it's my question, please don't feel sorry or bad feelings about it. Only this is my thinking. Why these people don't show their faces? Okay, I know they work something, okay, but okay, maybe I'm not enough interested, and many thinking, many thoughts are in my head. Okay, this is why sometimes it's more difficult online. Okay, my answer about COVID pandemic and increase of psychological disorders, feeling of insecurity. That was, if we remember, many people feel this feeling. Maybe also at the start of war, it's very similar. This feeling of insecurity, you don't have a control, unpredictability, and this is not. We don't like these feelings, and therefore we fight against this feeling. I want to feel relaxed. I want to have control, and so on. But when you are pushed for few months, maybe also for 2 years. Okay, I said for the beginning of pandemic area, few months without control. I don't know how it would be with my job, with money, with health, and so lot of fear, lot of anxiety influence or on our psychological well-being, because I never have had worked with so many teenagers as in these 2 years. Many teenagers, especially with problems with anxiety, because they had to be at home. They were not allowed to go to school. You know, in school you have breaks, you have funny moments in breaks, you have, I don't know, many things in the school, many moments, and now you don't have, they didn't have all these social connections, social meetings, and all their feelings stayed in them, and therefore many teenagers, also adult people, didn't know what to do with these feelings. And another issue was they had to be at home. Okay, it was okay if we were good relations, but if I had to live in family where we didn't have good relationships, it was very, very heavy for all these people. And then we had to work at home. Okay, then we had to work school with children, and we had to work at home and help children for school. And that was a lot of heavy situations. And I think that maybe few reasons why this COVID time was difficult for many peoples. Also, I have to mention, quite many people say, hey, it was very good that we have this opportunity to be at home all the day with children. But I don't know, was it half of people or was minority of people who felt in this way? I cannot answer this question.
It has some bright sides and a lot of dark sides. Thank you very much. If I remember correctly, Mr. Jerebic, you mentioned that you will have to leave the discussion in about 5 minutes.
I have to leave 10 to 1 p.m.
10 to 1 p.m. Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes.
Staying for us 15 more minutes. If anybody from the participants has a question for Mr. Jerebic, you're welcome to ask him something, if that's okay with you.
Yes, of course.
So we won't run out of time then when you have to leave.
Maybe because this is a conference about digital age, you know, all the time when I have lectures for students, I all the time ask them to see them, because it's much easier not to push them, but to ask them. So maybe this is one of my advice for future work on online. Make everything that we can make good connection through online. This is very, very important, because I'm afraid it will become a norma. I don't know how to say norma. You know, you're online, but you're not in half a way. You know, I'm just listening, not, and therefore I'm a little bit afraid of this kind of communication. I you know, I talk with you, but I'm search on the iPhone something, you know. And this is also problem is in our families. We eat together. I hope we eat together, but everybody search something on phone. And this is also similar, maybe it would be similar also in these online discussions.
It totally changes the form of the contact that we have known till now. It totally changes.
And if people ask me how to work online therapy, 2 years ago, I would say no way. But nowadays, I see I have many good experience, but it's one important thing. If I make very good connections with clients in office, it's much easier than work with him, with her online. Or it's much easier to work with clients online if they very good in articulation their feelings and thoughts. A little bit difficult, more difficult for me is work with patients who suffered for depression because it's easier to work with them in live in office than online. But if they are very good articulated, then there's no problem also work online. And maybe another thing is very interesting. Some people say, if I sit in my room at home, I feel safe, I feel comfortable. And for me, it's easier than to open many topics, which I don't know if I would open in therapeutic office. This is another thing which is quite important. This is plus for online therapy. Okay.
That I'm glad you mentioned this. This happens to me a lot of time too, working with clients online, that they're more able to open online because there's this computer, and we're, of course, we're in different rooms. Thank you. So what do you think the future of online psychotherapy maybe, or the whole telemedicine, what can it give us on the field of psychology and mental health?
I think the online therapy will become normal. This is one of normal way of therapy because now we have experience that it function. Also, there are some plus, some things is better online than, but I prefer mixed. Okay, I prefer working therapeutic office, but you know, what I experience now, that many people from far away, not from my town, they ask me for therapy online, what didn't happen 2-3 years ago. And so maybe there is special kind of, how to say, accepting how should therapy look like. So I think in future we will work online therapy. Majority of therapists, and also we on faculty, we prepare students also now for online therapy because we have to do it. Okay.
Yes. Thank you so much, Mr. Jerebic. Thank you. Okay, if we change the subject a bit, Mr. Dimitriadis mentioned working from home and its consequences on the mental health. I would like to ask you, Ms. Lozina, how working from home affects families, or maybe women in particular. They seem to be in a maybe a lot more difficult position than men, or is that just a myth?
Well, unfortunately, it's not. We continue to feel the pressure of working alongside the coworkers who aren't facing similar pressures of having children at home, homeschooling. That was a big issue in last 2 years, especially in Slovenia, where we had schools shut down for year and a half almost. And working parenthood, and especially working motherhood, is really a vulnerable place. The expression that we all know, that work expect us to work like we don't have children, and the society expects us to be mother like we don't have to work, it's more accurate than ever. I think that with all the built up responsibilities, like homeschooling, caring for sick, all the homes things that we have to do, I think that this really affects our mental health. I believe that because of that, the stress of multitasking has been really increased. I believe that we came a long way in gender equity, but certainly we are still way to go, that this could be really reached in everyday life. By this I mean housework, responsibility for childcare. It's really big thing for women in normal days, and in COVID days it's, I don't know, like 10 times more.
Do you think this pandemic has shown the roles between men, women in a new way, or maybe in an old way again?
I would say in an old way. I would really say in an old way, because even if we look at who was staying at home with kids, if we look to who was taking care of kids, of homeschooling, it was really a big issue, because we had a problem with schools. The teachers are mostly women, and they had two jobs. They still had to teach other children for their job and teach their children because they are moms. So this is really a big struggle. And I believe that this increased mental health conditions in enormous way that we are probably still not aware.
What would be the consequences? Can we look at the bright side and say, okay, it's shown that something is wrong with this role, woman, man, and their tasks? And because the problem was also, as I see it, that all the roles fall into one. There were no boundaries and no more rituals. When you wake up in the morning, you usually dress up, you put your makeup on if you're a woman, and you go to your job, you drive in your car, you're alone with your thoughts, and so on. Now, job just came to our bedroom and stay there throughout the whole day.
Yeah, I believe that there was a really big increase in so-called mom guilt, because you were doing all this job, all these roles for the whole day. And in the end of the day, you didn't do 8 hours of work. You weren't a mother like you want to be. You weren't a spouse like you want to be. You weren't a cook like you want to be. All that was in some, how should I say, half of the work was maybe done. And or you got the feeling that all day you were just telling your kid, not now, wait a moment. And on the other side, you had your coworkers, your boss, who still expects you to work, to get the job done. So I really, really think that this is the part where we see that work from home can be a good thing, but without the kids. It's simple like that. I really believe that this is the simple calculation. Yes, it is very good that we get to see that you don't have to work all the time in the office, that you can have a more free schedule, that you can work from home from time to time. But for this equation, it is really, really a must that you have time for yourself and for work, and not to be at the same time mom, teacher, worker, cook, and everything else.
Thank you. Mr. Dimitriadis, we talked a lot about now the consequences of working at home. What should be the role of maybe even educational institutions, and then the role of companies and work environments to deal with psychological problems from this point of view, that maybe a part of people who work at home now will work at home also in the near future?
So indeed, we are exiting pandemic, and we are entering now the post-pandemic period. And the situation globally shows that companies that, of course, were forced to have employees at home, many choose to keep either part of the company still at home or create a hybrid system in order to give options, flexibility, or a rotation schedule for people to continue working at least part of their responsibilities online. For example, one of the companies we work with in Belgium with the project I shared, which is their big telco, Proximus, it's actually they chosen a flexible hybrid model for their tens of thousands of employees. You can work from home, you can work on the regional hubs, and sometimes you can work really on the headquarters. So there is a new normal, absolutely. Sometimes driven by saving real estate costs, but absolutely, okay, Drago left. So the situation is the following. I will start exactly how I finished my previous question, which was, how do we know? How do we measure? Research has shown that there is a big gap between what the company knows and understands and what people in companies really go through. There was a study done in 4 countries, so US, UK, Singapore, and UAE, that found that while 80% of workers, of employees, thought that the support to their stress of the companies was very basic, almost 75% of HR directors, so human resources directors, thought that they were doing a fantastic job. So how can this be true at the same time? It cannot be true because it's mutually exclusive. Either the company has a fantastic approach and helps people to deal with their stress and with burnout and depression, or not. And while 80% of people said programs are not good, 75% of managers said we are doing a great job. There is a problem there. This is only one of the studies that I mentioned. There are more. So for me, being somebody that works with companies and advises companies and does research in companies in this issue, for me, this is the biggest challenge that we face today. How do we bridge the gap between the real emotional and mental stage of the people that work in that company and what management understands? Because if management does not understand, management will not intervene, and the bad situation will be perpetual. There is one thing that I can for certain, with a high degree of certainty say, is that you cannot follow, understand, diagnose, and then improve mental health at work by questionnaires. So the knee-jerk reaction of HR departments globally is to have a questionnaire every 6 months, a survey with the employees asking, how do you feel? Do you feel tired? Do you feel... And we think that we have done our job. If we have such a questionnaire, it goes, or personal, sometimes even discussions between management and employees, that we understand what's happening. A very big study in the US, 29,000 employees took part in this study, showed that this kind of approach, a survey, a conversation, is the least predictive of people's well-being. And being somebody that measured more than 7,000 brains globally, I can tell you that when we do a neuro study for whatever purposes, and then we ask the person the conscious response to what they saw, and we compare the implicit brain result with the explicit brain result, these two do not agree. And there is a lot of research now globally, also in the therapy section, in the therapy field, of how to really understand what's happening in us, because most of the things that happen in us, we don't know. They remain in the unconscious, not subconscious. Subconscious is a term we don't use anymore. It's an outdated term. So there is no subconscious actually. In modern neuroscience, we talk about unconscious. Okay, so no Freudian approach, a more modern approach. So for me, and the way, and the reason why I set up this new project in Brussels is to meet the challenge of detecting early signs of depression, anxiety, burnout, isolation, and the impact on mental and emotional health, in order to make interventions to help and empower employees improve. I think this is our biggest challenge. And if you check globally, the new developments in the well-being industry, in the well-being arena, okay, and in the organizational mental health arena, the big discussions are about knowing. We don't know. We don't know ourselves as employees. If you interview me, and I'm telling, and I tell you, Alja, I'm in burnout, I have burnout, it's already too late. If it reaches my consciousness level, if I'm aware about my burnout, I'm already deep into burnout. The big challenge is to understand early signs, somatic markers, bio signals that our body start keeping the score. By the way, fantastic book. The Body Keeps the Score, one of the best in therapy lately. In order to understand early signs of how our bodies keeps the score of all these that we go through, and then thus to intervene earlier and save time, effort, and money. This is the biggest challenge globally. How do we know?
And for all of us, and also for the companies and for the educational institutions.
Absolutely. It's fantastic that you said education, because I just came the meeting before this meeting. I was with the Free University of Brussels, which is one of the biggest universities, and the VUB, as it's called, this university, the VUB has a strategic pillar now on well-being of their personnel, academic, non-academic, well-being of students. So universities, education, and if we go back even to schools, there is a big discussion of how can we understand the well-being of students. Lately, empathy, the last 10, 15 years, empathy has been a big issue in schools. I think now well-being is becoming the next big thing. How do we approach, first of all, understanding, diagnosing the well-being of students, and second, equipping them with the tools to go in life and decrease their resilience? Because at the end of the day, understanding that I have a mental and emotional health issue is step one. Step two is becoming better, improving, feeling empowered, increasing my resilience. That's step two. But if we don't do a correct step one, we will never have a correct step two.
Mm-hmm. I think that's one of the most positive outcomes of this pandemic, if we can talk about that now. Maybe it's still not quite over. So the psychological well-being is being on the spot, is being highlighted, and probably the stigma will reduce, and even so business companies and educational system will make will be more careful about this.
If you allow me, it's very, we have a flu. Let's say I get the flu and I stay 2 days away from the office. I take a sick leave, and everybody that calls me, I say, hey, I'm sick. But if I feel tired for 2 weeks at work, I don't call this sick, because the mindset, how I started my participation, the mindset and the understanding of what is sick or not sick, or ill or not ill, or issue that requires attention is not there yet. So we need to understand that if I get 2 days flu, I need to stay at home. But if I work all week like crazy, and I have a exhaustion, ego depletion, we call the prefrontal cortex inability to deal with the challenges, I need also to take 2 days. And we are not there yet. I think we're not there yet, but we will get there.
Maybe we will get there sooner because of this pandemic and whatever is happening. Great. We had a question here. I saw it in the chat. What about the positive effects and new life that we successfully learned during last 2 years? My work experiences are towards more flexibility, enormously bigger productivity. So all the positive sides of working from home.
This is a great question. And, if you look at the science of well-being is a composite score number, a composite, let's say, phenomenon that is influenced by negative phenomena and by positive. So the way that we calculate or scientifically that well-being is diagnosed is not, you have more anxiety, you have more burnout, you are more stressed at work, or you feel depressed, so okay, bad well-being. But it's also the opposite. How much do you enjoy work? How much are you engaged at work? How much do you have purpose at work? How much you feel that you have a fantastic team at work? So you have a set of variables that when they are increasing, well-being is dropping. And you have a set of variables that when they are increasing, well-being is increasing. So exactly as the question we have, there are situations, even within the pandemic, that some of the variables that impact well-being positively were increased. And by the way, these two are not mutually exclusive. They can move independently. You can have increase on some good and increase on some bad, or they can move in an opposite way, but they can move in the same way, both down, both up. So I fully agree. If we have to understand well-being, we need to understand both the negative aspects of, so which variables impact your well-being negatively, but not only. If we do this, we are only seeing very small part of, one part of the story. The other part of the story is, what are the things that impact you positively? Let's increase those. So it's not only decreasing the bad stress, it's also increasing the joy that you have at work, or the purpose that you have at work, or the connections that you have at work, or the sense that you achieve more, as the question said, my productivity. So I think the serious work on measuring and diagnosing well-being is capturing both the negative variables, but absolutely the positive. And I agree also with the question, me personally, because I travel, quite a lot, I loved the lockdowns. I stayed with my family. I could do things with them during the day. I could participate, as Eva said, with the problems that exist. I could be a living, breathing part of the family, not just traveling around and talk to them through Viber. So I really, for me, there was a huge positive effect of pandemic, because I reconnected with my family, because I'm traveling twice per week. So yes, I fully agree. There were positive effects of the pandemic, and there were negative effects of the pandemic. We just have to make sure we measure both.
Yeah.
I
In a
believe
perfect world, everyone could probably choose whether they would like to work from home or from the office, or maybe a mixture of both. Yeah. But that would probably not be possible for all. Okay, so maybe if we can focus for a bit on the young people. What about them? We said changes came suddenly, changes came. We couldn't predict what will happen the next day. Will a young person go to school? Will not? He be able to see his friends in, let's say, a period of 1 month or not? So all this uncertainty. What do you think? What's happening with their perception of meaning for the young people? And how did the other part of the question? How did the social networks, Facebook, Instagram, etc., did this pandemic even deepen this involvement of young people into a virtual parallel world? What's going on with the young people today?
well, we see that I will get back to the question before. Also, positive effect is definitely digitalization, and that is a big part of young teens today. From normal school, they went to digital school, to online school, and parents these days are in this post-COVID times facing bigger issues with phones, with tablets, because for the last 2 years we put children to the screens and now we have to take them away from them. So this is a really, really big issue for parents today. I have a preschool son, so I'm not quite there yet, but I see it a lot, and my friends are talking to me. They are telling me, you know what, I was giving my son a screen for 2 years. We had to buy another tablet to have work for school, and now they want to be all day in front of screens doing okay for school, but also games, movies, cartoons. And it's a really, really big problem, because nowadays the earlier teens start using social media, the greater impact the platforms have on their mental health. So this is especially big problem for females, unfortunately, a bit bigger than for the boys, because with social media we are providing young people with a window through which they can view missed experiences. Social media puts a distorted lens on appearances and on the reality, because Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, this is all increasing the likelihood of seeing unrealistic filtered photos in very specific time, in time where teen bodies are changing. They are starting to get to know themselves, thinking about their bodies, their look, their feel, their emotions. So I believe that this is really, I would say, not so great uh, equation, where we on one hand we have digital world which give us enormous opportunities, but also gives us really, really, I would say, unrealistic world in hands of young people.
And the lack of personal contact even
Here's the
worsens.
FOMO, fear of missing out, is also a really big role, because if everyone is seeing, if everyone else is using social media sites and someone doesn't join in, they're concerned that they will miss something, that they will miss the jokes, the connections, invitations, experiences, and that can also create an anxiety and maybe even depression. I believe Nico will have more to say about this, that I believe, but because when people are looking online and they see they are excluded from some activity, it can affect their feelings and also their mental well-being. We can see in, I don't know, in third grade maybe they already have Viber groups, messenger groups, WhatsApp groups, and that can be a place of really mean things and really mean conversations. And as a parents, we have to set the tone that of firstly use of electronic devices. We are the one that have to know that if we are gonna put down phones at the dinner, there it will be more likely that our kids will also put down their phones. But it is really, really important that we as a parent know what is happening, that we know what our kids or young adults are doing, are facing, that we don't I would say this, I was really concerned that year ago or maybe two, I saw that one questionnaire that almost half of the parents don't know how to view history on browsers. I was amused because this is really, really important to know what your kid is doing, because only if you know you can intervene, protect, and everything else. Because if you don't know what is happening, you can really miss something that is going on with your kid, and it can be anxiety, and anxiety can lead to depression and so on. So I believe that this is really, really important topic for all of us, also parents, also teachers, and all the society.
Thank you. Yes, and if you don't talk to your kid because you're on the phone all the time, you cannot know what's happening in his life. The contact is missing here also.
It's missing because we this whole situation forced us that we put them in front of the screens because of the school and the school work. But now it is really, really challenging to bring them back from screens to community, to going outside, to go outside and play. And now it's normal to see 5 kids sitting, each of them on their phone, and even not talking in person. They are talking and communicating, but through phones. They're sitting next to each other. So it's really, really messed up situation for the kids. And I would say that I am a bit afraid of the future and about their socialization, empathy, and so on.
Thank you. Okay, Nico, what's with the children, the youth of today? Why did the biggest psychological increase of psychological problems between young people? What's going on? What's happening with their perception of meaning and their beliefs? Do they have faith in the future?
So there was a fantastic study came out after the first wave of lockdowns, first, second, also summer, that showed that actually younger kids in primary schools had stronger stress responses to the lockdowns than the teenagers. And the explanation of the team of psychologists that did this study, I posted about this a year ago. the interpretation of the psychologists that did the study was that for very young brains, lively, dynamic, day-to-day physical interaction is very important to develop their brains in a typical way. However, for teenagers, the fact that they didn't have to go at home, it relieved some of their stress instead of increasing. Because you have to understand that I talked about the prefrontal cortex before. We know that in teenage years, the prefrontal cortex, which is the analytical brain, trying to figure out a lot of parts of formation, project possible scenarios, how we fit, creating stress if we don't fit, is overactive in our teenage years. It's overactive. So actually, teenagers staying at home and not having to go every day to school to compare how they are dressed, to compare with colleagues, to have to face other students or other peers that maybe they don't like, or they are in a conflict. So this actually was a positive effect of the pandemic. Okay, but we do know even before the pandemic that the generation born after 1997, I think we call them Zoomers, right? That they alarmingly portray some behaviors increased than the behaviors in the past, especially boys have higher suicidal tendencies, and girls have more self-harm tendencies, because usually it's men that commit suicide and girls that harm themselves, usually self-harm through cutting, etc. And in both cases, we have huge increase, even before the pandemic. And the pandemic, early signs show that we have even boosting the boosted numbers. So something is happening with the young generations, especially being, how we call them, digital natives. We are digital immigrants, we emigrated into digital. I was not in my teenage years, there was nothing digital. I mean, I remember at the end of my teenage years, I got my first computers or some gaming, but we were going to arcades, or the relation was more with the TV rather than with a personal device. But these phenomena are now well established, and of course science has approached in a way to find out why. Why do younger generations harm themselves more? What is going on? Which were the root causes? Of course, digital environments, exactly what Eva described, is a big part of it. But not only. Other factors include parenting, styles of parenting. And one of the worst styles of parenting that seems to be correlated with this more self-harming or suicidal or emotional and mentally worse health that they experience is what is called helicopter parenting, or we even call it bulldozer parenting. What is this type of parenting? My kid should not be exposed to any danger, any unnecessary danger. So not to play outside, not to be dirty because they not for me to for half an hour to pass, I don't know where my kid is, and I'm becoming completely obsessive, so I all constantly follow them through the phone or other apps to see where they are. This overprotective parenting did not allow kids to be exposed to necessary risky conditions that then builds up their resilience. So actually, kids have a much lower threshold of emotional and mental resilience than previous generations. And this inability to deal with challenges creates a response which is self-harming instead of dealing, talking, and productively and creatively solving the problem. There is a lot of research about this. There is a fantastic book by the two main psychologists that came up with a model, Jonathan Haidt and Lisdorf, I think is the second one, The Cuddling of the American Mind. So as society, as educational systems, as parents, and as societies, we have to see how to deal with this situation. Now, Eva mentioned some of the things that, especially in parenting, has to happen. I believe that when it comes to social media, we are still in Wild West territory. Means, you know, in society there is an imbalance between innovation and the society catching up. So there is this innovation of social media, which have the completely freedom to do whatever they want, and the legal educational parenting system did not catch up yet with whatever social media are doing, but it's catching up. I don't know if you watched the documentary, The Social Dilemma on Netflix, that brought about some of the problems of social media design, because social media have been designed to keep you on the screen. It's not accidental. The algorithms are designed to make you addicted to social media. So me and my team, we did a study a year and a half ago in Serbia with electroencephalogram and millennials spending 5 minutes on Facebook and 5 minutes on Instagram. There we found something unbelievable. There is a video on YouTube about this study. That although we look like zombies when we are on the mobile phone, so you see somebody for 1 hour, you see your kid for 1 hour like this, and you think that the kid is bored, and because he or she is bored, staying on it's not like that. While externally we look like flat, the brain is experiencing amazing engagement, amazing positive emotions, and very low cognitive load, which is the cognitive difficulty in processing information. So actually what social media gives us is the perfect storm. Amazing likability, amazing engagement. These are different things that we measure in the brain, and very low difficulty. So it's like candy for the brain. Regardless if from the outside I look bored. And you know, we interviewed people and they said, usually I'm bored and I look on the phone. No, you are bored. Your brain is in seventh heaven. Or seventh heaven. So we have to, and there are more voices now globally, we have to find a way, a mix of measures. Some of them are legislative. What social media can put in the algorithm or what they should not put in the algorithm. So there must be also top-down control. But some measures are bottom-up, means to educate us and kids of how to make the most out of their mobile phone. I know it's controversial, but hear me out. China has now very strict rules of how much screen time kids have on social media. They cannot just take and switch on their phone and play in social media whenever they want. Also, China, again, I'm saying it's controversial, but we have to hear all solutions and then find our own. China tweaks the algorithms in order for what we see on my feed not to be only, you know, cultural stuff, but to be scientific. And the last thing that I will say, a study was done between the West and China on what kids, young kids, aspire to become in their lives. What do you think Western kids, and especially Americans, put as #1 profession that they want to be when they will grow up? You know, when you ask a kid, what would you like to do when you grow up? What do you like to be your profession? What do you think the profession in the US was? #1 profession.
A professional gamer.
Very close. An influencer, exactly. An online influencer. And what is the #1 job for the Chinese kids?
I believe engineer.
Yeah, an astronaut. Yeah, engineer and astronaut. So actually, the way that we deal with this shapes our emotions, our mental processes, and how we see ourselves now and in the future. And total freedom is anarchy. We see absolute anarchy in social media in the Western world. Legislation has to catch up, parenting has to catch up, education has to catch up. And I'm very happy that there are many voices now globally talking about this.
Well, thank you. That was very interesting. I'm definitely not giving my child my phone. at least for today. Okay, so we're facing a very big development of telemedicine. We have more and more applications for psychotherapy. We said before that all this is reducing the stigma regarding mental health and psychological problems. Mr. Jerebic said before about pros of psychotherapy moving online. Also, there are also pros and there are cons. What solutions for psychological well-being can the digital world offer us in the future? Maybe Nico or Eva, what are your...
I talked a lot before, so please, Eva,
Okay.
I don't know to spend most of your time.
Well, I believe that this development of telemedicine and application can really connect people and bring this closer to them in ways of talking more about it. Also, as I mentioned at the start of our conversation, the stigma is still here. I don't know, a month and a half or maybe more, I was talking about this topic at my profile on Instagram, and I was surprised by how many answers I get about this topic, that people are still feeling that going for help, that means that you're crazy. It's still simple like that. It's hard to believe that in the year that we are, but yes, people are still thinking that if you go for help, you have a problem, a big problem, not something I'm not feeling well today, but a big problem. And I believe that telemedicine applications, absolutely everything that increase talking about, promoting these health issues is a good point. It's really a good point, a good path that we should follow. And because of that, I strongly believe that this will come with some good points at the end, I don't know, maybe in a year, 2, 3, but really is a path that we should follow.
Okay, you think this personal contact in medicine and the digital world can go hand in hand and fight against psychological problems together in a way?
Yes, I believe that is. I don't see a problem there. I would say like that, because as we can saw, if we had schools online and if we can teach kids how to write online, if we can teach them math, I really believe that we can also talk with anyone and bring this kind of health closer to the end users, to the more and more people around, like Dr. Jerebic said, also people who are not in the same town as he is, or something, I don't know, they don't have transport, or they don't have much time on it, or any issue like that. It is now solved with digital psychological help. So I really believe that this is a way to go. And why not treat people in the digital world? As we know, for the last 2 years you couldn't go to a doctor in Slovenia. You were also treated through emails and phones and video calls. So if I had to show my son's sore throat and got diagnosed through email, I believe that with talking we can solve not so big medical issues, I would say.
Yes, I fully agree. This is a new channel. That's a new channel. It's a new channel. It's a fantastic channel. It has many benefits. But as everything in society, if you look at human history, whenever we had a new tool, we usually misused it. Look at nuclear energy, we threw a bomb. So, but slowly, because for me, I have a very positive view of humankind. It doesn't look like that sometimes because of wars and all this, but if you see some numbers and a more historical perspective, that you see that actually we're quite benign. Quite, not completely, but quite. So usually humanity finds a new toy, plays with it in a bad and in a good way, and then it sorts out itself. We find how to use it better than not as good. And I think the same is with this digital channel. We are in the Wild West yet. When did you use your first social media medium? Do you remember? I think I went on Facebook quite early. I used to live in England then. In 2005, I registered for Facebook, but I really started using it heavily after 2000, maybe 12, 13. So this is very new. It's a very new tool. It doesn't look like this because we use it every day, but historically speaking, it's a very new tool. It will take some time to figure out. China, maybe it's doing it too authoritative, Maybe in the West, we have to find another solution. But I believe we will slowly, and I think that the benefits that are there will be more than the disadvantages. It's always like this. It's with everything that humanity develops, technologically speaking. First is a mess, then we kind of find the best way of using it. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, we're in the mess now.
Great, thank you. Yes, I see the time. It's time for concluding thoughts, or maybe some more questions, if anybody.
Because I have to leave in 2 minutes, Eva, if you allow me, I will just say one thing. First of all, congratulations for this event and for this panel. I'm very happy being here and very happy sharing the panel with Eva and the previous colleague that unfortunately left early. For me, we need to constantly use our curiosity as parents, as citizens, as workers, as colleagues. We have to use our curiosity to constantly engage into conversations and solutions that can improve our life. It's about time to focus on our mental and emotional health. As we, sometimes we get just sneezing and running nose and we are worried and we take 1 million things. We have to be as careful and as serious about our emotional health. And I think we are entering the stage where this is happening. And I'm very happy to participate in such conversations in order to have a positive impact on people's lives. So thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much. And also thank you for these positive conclusions. Thank you for being here with us today, and I wish you all the best.
I think that we need to take a step back and look at the role of technology is playing in our society as a whole. So every talk about digitalization, about mental health, I think it's a good way. It's a really good point to take on. So I'm really glad that I had a pleasure and be a guest today with such amazing such amazing talk. And I believe that this is the point where we are on a way up from this mess, like Nico said. And I really hope that we as a parents and as citizens and adults are setting the tone right for our youngs, for our kids. And I hope that this all pandemic crisis, also from all the negative that we have, also brought us really some positive effects, like Nico before mentioned it, and that we should also focus on them, not just on the negatives and on all the bad things that happen to us, but also on the positive effects, and that we should all learn from this experience and start this new normal life with this experience and go forward. So thank you so much for this talk today. This panel was great, and all the digital day was really great conversations and full of new topics and things to look.
Thank you so much. Thanks for being here with us today and for sharing your thoughts and your feelings about all the questions. And I guess I will say a big thank you all for attending today, and I wish all the best and hope to see you next year.